There is a lot of false information and guesswork in the talk about cryptocurrencies, especially XRP and the US Congress. A lot of people think that Congress has officially approved or given the go-ahead for XRP, but the truth is much more complicated and tricky. There are official hearings, comments, and public records from Congress that we need to look closely at in order to understand what lawmakers have said about XRP. Those from the 2023 hearings on digital assets are especially important. The policymakers' thoughts on the quickly changing worlds of digital assets, blockchain technology, and regulatory oversight are very clear from these meetings. Members of Congress talked about the need for clearer rules on all cryptocurrencies during these meetings, but they didn't support any one token in particular. Their main goal was to create rules that protect investors while also allowing new ideas to flow. Lawmakers have talked a lot about the risks that come with some types of digital assets, mainly stablecoins and central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, which are harder to regulate than open or public cryptocurrencies like XRP. The talks made it clear how important it is to tell the difference between the various kinds of crypto assets so that lawmakers can use the right rules without stopping new ideas. A big part of the conversation was about the worries people have about stablecoins, which are backed by fiat currencies and are meant to keep their value stable. In the digital market, they are used a lot to settle bills and make payments. Congress was worried about the systemic risks that stablecoins might pose, like liquidity crises or problems for traditional banks if they are not properly controlled. These worries show how important strong regulatory systems are. Public tokens, on the other hand, were talked about in terms of how they could help make cross-border payments faster and the financial system work better. In the end, it's all about speeding up and smoothing out those foreign deals. But it's important to remember that even though the use case for XRP was recognized, no lawmaker specifically called for it to be treated differently by the government or the law. It is treated the same as any other digital asset, even though it has a lot of promise. XRP has never been officially backed by law or a congressional vote, and it has never been called legal tender or a security. Because there isn't a clear legal status, there is a lot of uncertainty and debate in the business. To the contrary, Congress's main message has been about how important it is to have clear rules that apply to all digital assets. Lawmakers stress that new ideas could be blocked without clear rules. This is very important to make sure that the business as a whole has a fair and clear system. A framework like this would help protect investment and boost growth. The goal of lawmakers is to make rules that give investors and companies peace of mind and keep the U.S. competitive in the global digital economy. The ongoing lawsuit between Ripple Labs and the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission is another important part of the congressional talk. This case is very important to how XRP is treated by the law in the U.S. While members and staff of Congress have recognized how important this case is, they have mostly left it up to the courts to decide whether XRP should be considered a security. Congress is interested in this legal battle but hasn't gotten involved directly. This shows that they'd rather have a measured, rule-based approach to regulation than political choices made on the spot. The hearings also showed that politicians are more aware than ever of the need to update old rules about money. A lot of the laws that are in place now were made before blockchain and digital assets became popular. This leaves a big hole in the regulatory framework. A lot of people aren't sure how the securities laws that are already in place relate to these new technologies and financial instruments because of this. A number of lawmakers have spoken out strongly in favor of new laws that would make it clearer what regulatory bodies like the SEC and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission can and cannot do when it comes to digital goods and tokens like XRP. This would help make sure that customer protection and new ideas are balanced in the world of digital assets, which is changing very quickly. Congress also talked about how to best protect consumers while also encouraging new ideas. They talked about how important it is to teach investors about the risks and benefits of investing in cryptocurrencies while avoiding policies that are too strict and could force crypto companies to move overseas or stop American innovation. Lawmakers kept stressing that industry leaders, bureaucrats, and lawmakers all needed to work together to create reasonable rules that take into account the unique features of cryptocurrencies. Also, it's important to know that discussions and hearings in Congress are not rules that must be followed. They are part of a longer process that includes discussions in committees, writing bills, negotiating, and finally passing laws. At this point, there isn't a bill that specifically names or supports XRP, and any rules that apply to digital assets will probably cover the whole market. The talk in Congress also included events happening in other countries and the fight for crypto leadership around the world. Politicians are aware that other nations like Japan and the EU are moving more quickly to make clear crypto rules and incorporate digital currencies into their financial systems. It's important for the US to have fair rules so that it can catch up and become a leader in crypto innovation. To sum up, it's not quite true that Congress has given the go-ahead for XRP. Instead, politicians have been working on making rules that apply to all cryptocurrencies. Now let's talk about XRP's future. Its role as a public token that makes transfers possible has been recognized. However, it's still being sued by the SEC and other groups. When we look ahead, a few things will determine how XRP will develop in the US. Firstly, the result of this case, and secondly, the creation of comprehensive crypto laws that are meant to make the market clear and fair for everyone. For investors and fans, the most important thing to remember is to keep up with congressional hearings, court decisions, and regulatory proposals. These will have an impact on XRP's legal and market standing in the future. The situation is still changing, but it's clear that regulations are becoming clearer, and XRP's best feature is still its ability to be used for global payments. Finally, knowing what the US Congress says about XRP can help you see through the hype and false information. It shows how important it is to use evidence-based research and keep a close eye on changes in laws and rules. This detailed knowledge will be important for everyone working with or interested in cryptocurrencies as they develop in the US banking system, which is very complicated.